They declared Odette Varrin forgotten beneath the frozen eyes of 20 Moonglass brides. The Frostmere Winter Gallery had not been opened for a wedding in 7 years, not since the nightblood steamed on the silver tiles, and Wolf King Lucien Frostmere was carried from his own vow chamber, unconscious, half-shifted and dying. The gallery had remained sealed afterward, its tall windows blackened by permanent frost, its choir statues veiled in white cloth, its floor washed clean so many times the stone no longer remembered warmth. But courts always found doors for humiliation. At moonrise they brought Odette back. She wore the same bridal cloak she had worn 7 years earlier. Not by choice. Lady Bellora Wyth had ordered it. Brought from the reliquary chest, pale silk torn at the hem, the old wolf thread darkened where Lucien's blood had touched it before the vow was interrupted. The cloak had once made Odette look like winter light. Now it made her look like a ghost, called to explain why she had not stayed buried. Lucien stood at the far end of the gallery beneath the great antler arch, crownless but no less king. His black hair fell loose to his shoulders, a silver scar cut from his collarbone under the edge of his formal coat, disappearing where the old wound still made him breathe too carefully in cold rooms. Behind him his royal wolf shadow stretched across the floor, massive and dark, but its ears were laid back toward the veiled statues, as if it heard something no living courtier could, Odette noticed. She had survived 7 years by noticing what others dismissed. Bellora stood beside the witness table in pearl-white velvet, perfect as a blade kept in silk. Before her lay the vow, record the succession ledger, and the silver bowl, where incomplete marriages were washed from royal law. Odette Varrin Bellora, said her voice, carrying gently enough to sound merciful, you entered this gallery as bride to the Wolf King. But the Moonglass Choir did not complete the royal harmony. The king's answer was never sung. The court therefore recognizes you not as Luna, not as widow, not as queen-bound consort, but as forgotten bride. Forgotten. The word moved through the gallery like frost across glass. Odette did not look at Lucien. If she did, she might remember the weight of his body against hers when the assassin's silver struck him mid-vow. She might remember kneeling beside him while wolves screamed outside the gallery, and the choir statues stood silent above them. She might remember the priest shouting that no vow could complete without the king's answer. She might remember the lie, because she had spoken her vow, all of it, alone. Lucien had been unconscious, bleeding through her cloak, his hand locked around her wrist, as if some part of his wolf still refused to let her go. The priest had fled to call healers. Bellora had pulled the witnesses away, and Odette, with Lucien's blood under her nails and his breath failing against the tile, had bent over him and finished the vow where his silence began. My breath to guard yours, my name to hold the road back, my wolf to stand where your shadow falls. She had not known whether the old law could hear one voice where 2 had been promised. But Lucien lived. That was all she had been allowed to keep. Bellora touched the vow record. For 7 years you have remained in the North Tower under courtesy protection. That protection ends tonight. By succession, necessity, your unfinished claim must be removed before the Winter Air Council convenes. There it was. Not morality, not truth, necessity. The word powerful people used when they wanted love to step aside quietly. Lucien's jaw tightened. Only once. Odette saw that too. Bellora lifted the silver bowl. Repeat the opening line if you contest this ruling. If the choir remains silent, the court will know your claim has no breath left. Odette looked at the veiled statues. The Moonglass Choir did not answer affection. It did not sing for beauty, rank pity, or longing. It recorded true vow breath, and could replay what had truly been spoken under blood, moon, and witness. That was the rule. That was why Bellora had kept the gallery sealed for 7 years. Odette folded her hands inside the torn cloak. No. A sharp murmur passed through the witnesses. Bellora tilted her head. You refuse to prove your vow. I refuse to offer the same devotion twice to be believed once. The gallery went still. Lucien did not move. His wolf shadow did. The dark shape behind him stepped forward until its claws touched the edge of the old vow circle, ears lifted toward Odette, as if her refusal had struck a buried melody awake inside its bones. Lucien looked down at it, and for the first time that night, uncertainty cut through the king before command could cover it. Odette felt the old wound inside her answer. Not hope. Never that quickly. Only recognition that his body remembered something his court had taught his mind to deny. Bellora's expression cooled. Then the court records your refusal. No, Odette said. Record that I have already given what you ask me to spend again. Something moved beneath the veils. Not sound. Not yet. A faint blue glow passed through the nearest Moonglass statue, then vanished so quickly, several nobles gasped and pretended they had not. Lucien's hand rose halfway to his chest. Bellora saw. For one breath, her polished calm slipped. Her fingers tightened around the silver bowl hard enough to make the black water tremble. The gallery is old, she said too quickly. Glass holds impressions. So do women, Odette said. The blow landed softly. That made it worse. Bellora turned to Lucien. My king, the heir council cannot proceed while an unfinished vow remains politically exploitable. Lucien looked at the vow record, then at Odette. Suspicion lived in him still, but beneath it something older had woken pain searching for a melody it had heard in fever. He said Odette. It was the first time he had spoken her name in the gallery since the wedding night. She hated that it still knew where to wound her. Do not make my name gentle now, she said. His face went pale under the winter light. Bellora seized the silence before Lucien could take another step. By royal necessity, she said. The words, sharper, now hurried beneath their polish. Odette Varrin is banished from Frostmere Court before midnight. Her bridal claim is dissolved. Her tower rooms are sealed. Her vow record is declared incomplete. The silver bowl filled with black water. Odette turned before anyone could see her hands shake. At the gallery threshold, she stopped only once. Lucien had moved a single step after her. Not enough. Never enough. She looked back at him. A woman should not have to haunt a gallery to be remembered by her husband. Then she walked out into the winter corridor, the torn bridal cloak trailing like pale smoke behind her. The gallery doors closed. The locks fell. At midnight, long after Odette had been escorted beyond the outer bridge, the sealed winter gallery lit from within. Every veiled Moonglass statue raised its face, and the choir began to sing Odette's wedding vow alone. Snow gathered in Odette's hood before the first guard dared to turn back. She had reached the outer bridge of Frostmere Keep, where the black stone narrowed over the frozen ravine, and the northern wind came up from below, like the breath of buried wolves. The castle gate stood behind her. Beyond the bridge waited the exile road, pale under moonlight and empty except for the sleigh Bellora had ordered prepared, without cushions, crest, or escort banner. A forgotten bride did not require comfort. The two guards beside Odette heard the sound before she did. One lowered his spear. The other whispered the gallery. Odette did not move. She had spent 7 years training herself not to run toward doors that would not open for her. Then the song reached the bridge. It came thin at first, as if sung through ice. A single female vow line carried by 20 glass throats, clear enough to make the snow stop falling for one breath. My breath, to guard yours. Odette closed her eyes, not because she was surprised, because memory had teeth. The guards stepped away from her as if the song made her dangerous. Above the keep, the sealed winter gallery shone blue-white behind its blackened windows. No living hand had opened that chamber. No priest stood inside. No bride breathed before the statues. Still the Moonglass Choir sang. The gate behind her groaned open. Wolf King Lucien Frostmere came through without cloak or crown. his formal coat still unfastened at the throat, one hand pressed against the old scar beneath his collarbone. His royal wolf shadow moved ahead of him, low and restless nose lifted toward the song, as if it had found a trail lost for 7 winters. Bellora followed with 3 council witnesses and the silver bowl clutched in both hands. The black water inside it trembled with every note. An echo, Bellora said before anyone accused her of fear. A gallery echo. Old glass repeats grief under weather pressure. The choir sang again, "My name to hold the road back." Lucien stopped. The line struck him so visibly that even the guards saw it. His breath broke once. His fingers pressed harder over his scar. Not in pain alone, but recognition. Odette watched the king, who had not come to her tower door for 7 winters, stand in the snow, as if the voice inside the gallery had reached through bone and closed around his heart. "I heard that," he said. Bellora's face tightened. "My king." "In fever," Lucien said, "after the silver wound, before I woke." That melody was there. Odette looked away first. She hated him for remembering now. She hated herself more for caring that he remembered at all. Bellora moved closer to him. Fever makes music from pain. The court cannot rebuild succession law from a dying man's dream. "No," Odette said. Lucien's eyes found hers. She turned back, the torn bridal cloak snapping around her legs. "But the choir does not sing dreams. It records vow breath spoken under blood, moon, and witness." Bellora's mouth thinned. "You refuse to repeat the vow?" "Yes." "Then you cannot claim what the gallery chose to echo." Odette's voice stayed quiet. "I am not claiming the echo. I am hearing what I already gave." The choir's 3rd line rose from the sealed gallery. "My wolf to stand where your shadow falls." Lucien's wolf shadow bowed its head so sharply its claws scored the snow. Lucien swayed. Only slightly. "Enough." A councilman whispered. If her vow was recorded, the marriage was not false. Bellora turned on him. It was incomplete. The gallery answered with a sound like glass cracking under moonlight. Not broken. Opening. A blue glow flowed from the high windows down the castle wall and across the snow. It reached the outer bridge and stopped at Odette's feet. The light did not touch Lucien first. It did not touch Bellora. It did not touch the silver bowl. It touched the torn hem of Odette's bridal cloak. Letters formed in the snow beneath her. Vow breath recorded. King's answer absent. Marriage interrupted. The guards dropped to one knee before they could stop themselves. Bellora's fingers tightened around the bowl. Black water spilled over her wrists, smoking where it touched the snow. "Interrupted is not completed," she said. Odette looked at the words. They did not make her free. Not yet. But they made the lie less clean. Lucien took one step toward her. "Odette." She lifted a hand. He stopped. That obedience came late, but it came. "I know what you want to ask," she said. His face went still. "You want me to sing the vow again. You want the gallery to answer while you stand awake this time. You want the same devotion placed back in your hands where you can recognize it without cost." Lucien said nothing. The silence answered for him. Odette's throat tightened, but she did not let the wound soften her words. "No." The blue light at her feet brightened. Bellora seized it. "You see." She refuses completion again. Odette turned toward the witnesses. A woman should not have to offer the same devotion twice to be believed once. The Moonglass Choir fell silent. That silence shook the keep more than song had. Then a new voice rose from inside the gallery. Not Odette's. Not Lucien's. A priest's voice, thin with panic and preserved in moonglass memory. "The king is unconscious. Remove the witnesses. No answer can be heard." Bellora went white. Lucien turned slowly toward her. The gallery continued. Another voice followed. Bellora's voice. "Seal the choir before it records the remainder." the silver bowl slipped from Bellora's hands and struck the bridgestone. Black water spread between her boots. Odette did not step back. Lucien's wolf shadow placed itself between the spill and the hem of her torn bridal cloak. For the first time that night, the king's protection arrived before his words. Lucien's voice came low. No one touches her. Odette looked at the wolf shadow, then at him. You protect my body after exiling my vow. The sentence hit him harder than accusation. His jaw worked once. Yes. Bellora took one careful step backward. The blue light from the gallery moved faster. It crossed the bridge, climbed the fallen silver bowl, and burned a line across the black water. Witness removed before vow law closed. Then the Moonglass Choir opened all 20 glass mouths again, and this time it began singing the name of the witness who had ordered the doors sealed. The silver bowl rolled toward the ravine. Black water spilled from its rim in thin, smoking trails, cutting dark veins through the snow on the outer bridge. No guard moved to stop it. No councilman bent to retrieve it. The song from the sealed Winter Gallery had made every loyal hand uncertain of what loyalty meant. Odette watched the bowl strike the bridge rail and stop. The Moonglass Choir did not. From high inside the frost-blackened gallery, 20 glass mouths sang one name in a harmony so clear it seemed to come from the moon itself. Bellora Wyth. Not accusation, record. The name passed over the bridge, over the guards, over the witnesses who had come to erase Odette before midnight. It touched Bellora like a hand closing over the back of her neck. Her face did not break at once. That made the breaking worse. The choir is damaged, she said. 7 sealed winters have warped the glass. The gallery sang again. Bellora Wyth. Lucien stood between the black water and Odette's torn bridal hem, his wolf shadow low before her, like a dark shield. But his eyes were on Bellora now, and something inside them had gone colder than suspicion. Why would damaged glass know your name? He asked. Bellora's fingers flexed as if reaching for the missing bowl. Because I was witness steward that night. My name belongs to the chamber record. Odette felt the old pain sharpen. Witness steward. That had been Bellora's title when Odette knelt beside Lucien's bleeding body and begged someone to stay. The priest had fled. The guards had panicked. Bellora had remained long enough to choose what the law would remember. The blue light at Odette's feet widened, crossing the bridge stones until it touched Lucien's boots. His wolf shadow flinched but did not retreat. A new line formed in the snow. Witness steward removed living witnesses before vow breath settled. One of the councilmen whispered, "Vow breath settles after the final line." Bellora turned on him. "Only if both parties answer." The blue light burned brighter. Only one answer required to preserve life bond until King wakes. Lucien's breath caught. Odette closed her eyes for one heartbeat. There it was. Not marriage completed into comfort. Not love returned. A life bond preserved by a vow spoken over a dying king. 7 years of silence, tower walls, courtesy meals, lowered eyes, and her name spoken as an unfinished inconvenience had rested on a rule the court already knew. Bellora had not erased ignorance. She had used it. Lucien looked at Odette. "You knew." "I knew I spoke," she said. "I did not know which law heard me. You never told me." Her laugh was small and empty. "You accepted a court where I was permitted to be grateful for a locked tower." The words left him visibly struck. Good. Pain should not always arrive neatly enough for apology. Bellora stepped forward. "My king, this is precisely why the old gallery law was sealed. A one-sided life bond gives too much weight to grief. It can be misused by any woman willing to speak over a wounded royal body." Odette turned to her. "You mean any woman willing to keep him alive when everyone useful had left?" Lucien's wolf shadow made a low sound. Not a growl. A memory trying to become breath. The gallery answered with another preserved voice. "Odette's. You do not have to answer me. Only live." Lucien's hand went to his chest again. This time he did not hide it. "I heard that too," he said. Odette looked away, but the line had already crossed the snow between them. Bellora saw the danger. Her voice sharpened. "The Heir Council convenes at dawn. If this record is allowed to stand unresolved, every noble house will challenge the succession. Frostmere cannot endure another winter without a named heir." "Then, perhaps Odette said you should not have built succession on a lie." Bellora's calm fractured. The choir statues inside the gallery began to glow through the black windows. One by one their veils burned blue-white from beneath, not with fire but with remembered breath. The sealed doors at the far end of the bridge shook once. A guard crossed himself with 2 fingers. No living hand opened it. Odette felt the pull in her ribs. Not command. Recognition. The Winter Gallery was calling its record back to the place where the lie had begun. Lucien took a step toward the doors. Odette stopped him with one word. "No." He halted. The council stared. A king halted by the woman he had banished should have caused outrage. Instead, the gallery windows brightened as if the choir approved the shape of that refusal. Odette walked past him. Not because she trusted him, because the song had followed her long enough. Bellora moved to block her path. "You have no authority to enter a sealed royal gallery." Odette looked at the glowing doors. "Then let the gallery say so." The doors opened inward. No hand touched them. Cold blue light flooded the bridge. Inside, the 20 Moonglass brides stood unveiled. Their glass faces lifted their mouths open around a silent note waiting to be released. Odette stepped across the threshold. The gallery floor scrubbed clean for 7 years, filled with pale stains beneath her feet. Not new blood, remembered blood. Lucien's. The path led from the vow circle to the place where Odette had knelt with him dying in her lap. Bellora stayed outside the doors. For the first time, she looked afraid to enter the room she claimed had forgotten. Lucien saw it. "Bellora," he said. She did not move. The Moonglass Choir sang one final line before the next record opened. "Vow holder present." Then the succession ledger on the witness table burst open by itself, pages whipping in an invisible wind, until they stopped on a law written in old wolf silver. Odette read it first. Her face went still. Lucien stepped behind her close enough to see, not close enough to touch. The law burned brighter. "True vow holder holds right of winter hire consent." The old succession ledger cut Lucien's finger when he reached for the page. A thin line of blood appeared across his thumb, bright against the wolf silver script. The book had not been touched by a living king in decades, yet it knew royal blood well enough to refuse being handled carelessly. Lucien drew his hand back. Odette did not. The ledger lay open on the witness table in the Frostmere Winter Gallery, its pages glowing beneath the blue-white faces of the Moonglass Choir. Around them, the floor still showed the remembered shape of Lucien's blood from 7 years ago. Not wet, not fresh, but present enough to make every witness stand farther from the vow circle. Bellora remained at the threshold. That was the loudest confession in the room. Odette looked down at the law. "It does not say queen." Lucien's voice came carefully. "What does it say, vow holder?" The word passed through the gallery. The choir statues tilted their glass faces toward her. Odette read aloud. "Where royal vow breath preserves a wolf king's life before answer is returned, the speaker of the preserving vow shall hold winter heir consent until the king answers by waking oath or releases the bond by truth." A councilman whispered. "That law predates the bloodline wars." Bellora's voice came from the doorway, and was buried for good reason. Odette looked at her. Buried, not repealed. Bellora finally stepped inside. The moonglass floor dimmed beneath her feet, not rejecting her, only recording that she entered late. "That law was written for plague winters," Bellora said. "It was never meant for succession crisis. A woman speaking over an unconscious king cannot be allowed to decide the future of a throne." Odette closed the ledger slowly. "There it is." Lucien turned toward Bellora. You did not erase her vow because you wanted me free to marry. Bellora's expression hardened. Do not make me smaller than I am my king. The honesty of that nearly chilled the room more than her lies had. I did not do this for romance, Bellora said. I did it because Frostmere cannot let succession depend on a girl who sang beside a dying man and then waited 7 years in a tower. Odette's face did not change. Lucien's did. His wolf shadow moved before he did, placing itself between Bellora and Odette, with its head low, not attacking, not yet. Body memory again. The shadow had begun trusting what the king still had to earn. Bellora saw it and spoke faster. If Odette is vowholder, she can refuse the heir council's chosen bloodline. She can invalidate any winter heir named under incomplete bond status. She can ask why the Wyth succession slate was prepared before her banishment. The last sentence came too late. She knew it the moment it left her mouth. The gallery heard. So did Lucien. Prepared before he said. Odette looked at the succession ledger. The book opened again. Pages moved without wind until they stopped near the back where fresh ink had been scraped over old wolf silver. A folded heir slate slid out from between 2 pages and fell onto the witness table. No one touched it. The Moonglass Choir began humming. Not Odette's vow this time. A low note of warning. Lucien looked at Odette. May I? She almost laughed. 7 years ago he would not have asked. 7 years ago she would have thought that hurt less. You may read it aloud, she said. Not hold it against me. He accepted the cut with a small bow of his head and lifted the slate by its corner. His eyes darkened as he read. Winter Heir Council Emergency Slate. Frostmere Bond declared incomplete. Forgotten bride removed. Vow holder absent. Consent bypass requested. The gallery windows flashed blue. A witness made a strangled sound. Lucien continued, voice lowering. Primary succession advisor, Lady Bellora Wyth. Bellora said nothing. Odette looked at him. You knew the heir council was coming. Yes. You knew my claim complicated it. Yes. And when Bellora made my silence convenient, you accepted convenience as law. The words struck him in front of everyone. Good. Some wounds deserved witnesses. Lucien's hand tightened around the slate until the edge bent. I accepted a quiet throne. Odette held his gaze. Then stand quietly now. The command should have humiliated him. Instead, he obeyed. He stepped back from the ledger and let Odette stand closest to the law that had used her breath without protecting her life. The Moonglass Choir brightened. Bellora's mouth tightened. You are all bewitched by wounded poetry. Ask her what she wants. A throne, revenge. A dead marriage dragged back into power. Odette turned to her. I want the record read without your hand over its mouth. The choir sang one sharp note. The veils burned fully away from the statues. 20 Moonglass brides stood unveiled, each face different, each mouth open around a stored vow. Their glass throats lit one by one, showing old traces of silver blood, breath, and interrupted law. Lucien looked at them with something close to awe. Bellora looked like a woman watching locked witnesses wake. Odette touched the ledger. Show the night the witnesses were removed. The gallery answered. Blue light rose from the floor. The air filled with memory, the wedding night, the assassin's silver Lucien collapsing, Odette kneeling with his head in her lap. Bellora stood beside the vow circle, not panicked, not confused. Calculating, the priest cried. The king has not answered. Odette's past voice said, Then let me finish what keeps him alive. Bellora's past hand closed around the priest's sleeve. Remove the witnesses, she ordered. If the choir holds one-sided breath, the heir law wakes. Lucien went still. Odette felt the old room open beneath the present one. The memory showed Bellora turning to the choir levers hidden behind the witness table. She pulled a silver pin. The veils dropped over the Moonglass statues before Odette's final line settled. But not before it was spoken. The choir sang softly. My wolf, to stand where your shadow falls. Lucien's wolf shadow lowered its head against the floor. Not to worship, to grieve. Bellora stepped backward. I preserved the crown. Odette looked at her. You preserved your access to it. The memory shifted. A final page appeared inside the succession ledger, one Bellora had not known the choir kept. It bore Odette's name in old wolf silver, and one line beneath it. Winter heir consent unclaimed, unbroken. Then the gallery doors slammed shut behind Bellora. The Moonglass Choir spoke in one voice. Vow holder must be asked before any heir is named. The gallery windows froze from the inside. Blue-white frost climbed the black glass in sharp branching lines, sealing moonlight into the winter gallery until every face looked carved from cold. The doors had shut behind Bellora, but no guard moved to open them. The Moonglass Choir stood unveiled above the vow circle, 20 glass brides with their mouths parted around a silence that felt more dangerous than song. Bellora stood nearest the doors. For once she was on the wrong side of a lock. She lifted her chin. The gallery has made its point. Odette Varrin must be asked before any heir is named. Ask her then. Lucien looked at Odette. The whole room did. That was Bellora's talent, turning exposure into another weapon before shame could settle. Odette felt the weight of every stare. Council witnesses, wolf guards, priest recorders. Lucien's royal shadow still low near the vow circle. The old succession ledger, open and burning with her name in wolf silver. 7 years of being unused had taught her this much power did not always look like being wanted. Sometimes it looked like being needed too late. No, Odette said. Bellora's eyes sharpened. You refuse to answer the heir law. I refuse to be used as a key because your lock failed. A few witnesses lowered their gazes. Lucien did not. That was harder. He looked at her as if the words deserved to remain whole even when they cut him. Bellora stepped toward the witness table. The moonglass floor dimmed under her shoes. If she refuses, the heir council freezes. Rival branches will challenge the throne by dawn. Frostmere blood will turn on itself before winter ends. Odette looked at Lucien. Did you hear that? His jaw tightened. Yes, she still speaks as if your throne is the only life in the room. The royal wolf shadow turned its head toward Bellora. Lucien's hand flexed once at his side. Old habit almost made him command. Odette saw him swallow it. No one commands her answer, he said. The words moved through the gallery like a blade laid down. Bellora went still. Odette hated that something in her chest felt the shape of relief. It was too late to be relief. It could only be evidence of how long she had been denied ordinary dignity. Lucien looked at her, and his voice changed, losing the quartz iron for something more difficult. Odette, I will not ask you to repeat your vow. The choir did not sing. It listened. I will not ask you to repair succession because I failed to question the silence built around you. His eyes moved once to the blood memory on the floor. And I will not claim the breath you gave while I was dying as if it belonged to me by throne. The words were correct. They did not heal, but the Moonglass Choir glowed faintly around them, accepting that they were true. Bellora's calm cracked again. My king, this is indulgence. She has spent 7 years building resentment inside a tower. You cannot place Frostmere's future at the mercy of a wounded bride. Odette turned slowly toward her. You keep calling me wounded as if you were not the knife. The nearest moonglass bride brightened. A memory opened in its chest. Not the wedding night. Later. Odette in the north tower, thinner, younger, sitting beside a narrow window while snow beat the glass. A sealed food tray waited untouched near the door. Outside the room, Bellora's voice spoke to 2 guards. No letters from the king reach her. Courtesy protection does not include influence. Odette in the memory looked toward the door. She had heard. The present Odette did not move. Lucien did. 1 step. Then he stopped himself before reaching for the memory. as if his hand could undo it. The choir opened another statue. Odette's tower again. A healer at the threshold holding a packet of herbs. Bellora's voice. No sleeping draught strong enough to make her sing. She must remain quiet, not senseless. A councilman whispered, seeing Bellora's face lost color. The third statue answered him. Bellora, in the tower corridor years later, speaking to the priest recorder. If she ever sings the vow in grief, the choir may wake. Keep her chapel access revoked. Odette stared at the memory. Some cold places inside her finally found names. They had not only forgotten her, they had prevented remembrance. Lucien's voice came low. You kept her from the chapel. Bellora lifted her chin. I kept a destabilizing claimant from manipulating sacred instruments. Odette laughed once. Soft. Terrible. You were afraid of me singing alone in a chapel. You had already done enough damage with one song. The gallery went silent. Bellora understood too late that she had stopped denying the vow. The Moonglass Choir did not miss mercy. It did not miss cruelty either. All 20 statues lit. The wedding night memory returned, sharper than before. Lucien's body on the floor. Odette kneeling with his blood across her bridal cloak. Bellora's hand on the lever. Witnesses being led out. Then, Odette's past voice broken but steady. My breath to guard yours. The present, Lucien pressed one hand against his heart. The memory continued. My name to hold the road back. His wolf shadow rose slowly. My wolf to stand where your shadow falls. The glass brides sang the line until the whole gallery shook. Then beneath the song another sound emerged. A growl. Not from the present wolf shadow. From the memory. Lucien's unconscious royal wolf, half-formed in silver blood on the floor, had answered her final vow with one low broken note. Odette went still. Lucien looked as if the air had been taken from his lungs. Bellora whispered, No. The choir recorded the sound. The old succession ledger turned its pages violently. A new line burned beneath Odette's name. King's wolf answered in fever blood. Royal voice absent. Bond interrupted, not void. The gallery floor trembled. Lucien's wolf shadow stepped into the old vow circle and lowered its head toward Odette's torn cloak, not bowing, remembering. Lucien did not move closer. This time he understood that even memory could become a trespass if he used it to claim what she had not offered back. Bellora backed into the closed doors. A wolf noise is not a king's answer. No, Odette, said her voice barely above the choir's fading hum, but it proves you lied when you called the gallery silent. The Moonglass brides turned their faces toward Bellora, their mouths opened again, but the next sound was not a vow. It was the scrape of an old lock inside the witness table. A hidden drawer slid open by itself. Inside lay a sealed strip of bridal veil, stained with Lucien's blood, and Odette's vow breath folded around a single succession token. Bellora stared at it. Lucien's voice dropped. What did you hide in my bride's veil? The blood-stained veil unfolded without a hand touching it. It opened on the witness table like a pale moth waking in winter, its torn lace stiff, with old blood and moon-silver breath. At its center lay a small round token, carved from black wolf bone, no larger than a coin marked with the Frostmere heir sigil. Odette knew the sigil. Everyone in the gallery knew it. No heir could be named before that token was placed before the Winter Council. It did not crown anyone. It allowed a name to be considered. Without it, succession remained argument instead of law. Bellora had hidden it in Odette's veil. Not in a vault, not in the crown treasury. In the proof she had called unfinished. Lucien stepped toward the table, then stopped before his shadow crossed Odette's hands. A small restraint, a late one. But the Moonglass Choir brightened. Odette looked at the token. So the heir council was never waiting for my vow to be dismissed. Her voice was calm enough to frighten the witnesses. It was waiting for the token you buried inside the vow. Bellora's face had gone white, but her posture remained perfect. The token was preserved, Hidden Odette said. Protected from political chaos. From me. Bellora did not answer. The choir hummed once. Answer enough. Lucien's voice turned cold. Why was the heir token in her veil? Bellora looked at him then, and for the first time that night she seemed angry enough to abandon elegance, because your wolf answered her. The room stilled. Bellora pointed to the vow circle. Not your mouth, not your crown, not your conscious will. Your wolf. If the token remained in treasury after that sound, old law could have dragged the heir council under her consent before you woke. She would have held the bridge between your life and your succession. Odette looked down at her hands. For 7 years, those hands had been called patient, silent, preserved by courtesy. A woman kept in a tower because the court did not know where to place her. No, the court had known exactly where to place her. Away from the token, away from law, away from the question. Lucien said, You let me believe the token remained sealed in treasury. I let Frostmere survive your weakness. His wolf shadow rose. Bellora did not flinch this time. You were dying. Your wolf answered a bride you had not finished marrying. Rival branches were ready to tear the north apart. I made one clean choice before the whole kingdom bled. Odette lifted her eyes. You made me the wound you could cover. Bellora's gaze cut to her. You were a girl with a song. I was a bride with a vow. You were a threat to succession. The Moonglass Choir rang hard enough to make frost fall from the rafters. True, the word did not appear. It did not need to. Bellora had finally spoken the motive cleanly. Lucien looked as if it had cut him in a place armor had never covered, and I accepted every silence that followed. Odette did not spare him. Yes, the heir token pulsed black in the open veil. The old succession ledger turned to a new page. Heir token must be presented by vow holder if life bond was preserved before king's answer. A councilman made a broken sound. Then no heir council could have lawfully convened without her. Bellora snapped, which is precisely why she had to be removed. The gallery went silent. No veil, no softness, only the truth standing without ornament. Lucien's hand closed over the edge of the witness table until the old wood cracked beneath his fingers. Guards. Bellora's chin lifted. If you arrest me here, every Wyth ally in the heir council will call this bridal enchantment. Odette touched the veil. The blood-stained lace warmed beneath her fingers. Do not arrest her for me. Lucien turned to her. Pain and command warred in his face. She knew that look. She had loved it once before she learned that kings could use restraint as absence. Then for what he asked. For the record, Odette said. Let the gallery finish. The Moonglass Choir opened its mouths. This time, it did not sing Odette's vow. It sang the missing years. North Tower windows, locked chapel doors, letters returned unopened, guards ordered not to carry messages, healers told she was too unstable to visit the king, Lucien standing outside her corridor, one's hand lifted, while Bellora's voice behind him said, She sleeps under draft. Disturbing her will reopen the vow fever. Odette inhaled once. She had not known that. Lucien had come once. Only once. And left. The memory showed him lower his hand, showed him turn away, showed the tower door remain closed. Lucien closed his eyes. Odette looked at him across the blue-lit gallery. You came. His voice was rough. Yes. And believed the person who locked the door. Yes. The answer entered the room like an admission laid on stone. Bellora's fingers moved toward her sleeve. Odette saw. So did Lucien's wolf shadow. The black shape struck first, pinning Bellora's wrist against the closed gallery door. A small silver key slid from her sleeve and rang against the floor. The Moonglass Choir turned every glass face toward it. Odette picked it up. The key was cold enough to burn. A chapel key. Her chapel key. the one revoked before she could ever sing where sacred glass might hear. The choir whispered through every statue, a cess denied to prevent vow recognition. Bellora's composure finally broke. If she had sung in chapel, the gallery might have woken before the council was secured. Lucien's voice came low. Before I was told the truth, Bellora looked at him. Before you made a romantic mistake that ended a dynasty. Odette closed her fingers around the key. Then she placed it beside the heir token. Not in her pocket. Not near Lucien. On the witness table. I will not be made secret again, she said. The succession ledger burned brighter. Vow holder present. Token recovered. Chapel access restored. Heir consent may be asked. Lucien looked at the final line. Then at Odette. His throat moved once. The whole court waited for the king to ask. Odette lifted her hand before he could speak. If you ask me now because law corners you, the answer is no. The choir went still. Lucien bowed his head. Not in defeat, in understanding. Then I will not ask here. Bellora gave a sharp laugh. You would delay the heir council for her pride, Lucien looked up. No, he said, for her consent. The word moved through the gallery. The Moonglass brides glowed deep blue. Bellora stared at him as if he had chosen ruin. Perhaps he had, but for the first time all night he had chosen it before the gallery forced him to. The witness table opened again. Another hidden compartment unlocked beneath the heir token. Inside lay a strip of parchment, sealed with old Frostmere blood. Lucien went still. Odette saw his face and knew this secret was not Bellora's. It was his. The choir whispered, King's answer. Written, never spoken. The parchment unfolded like something ashamed of being found. Old Frostmere blood cracked along its seal, flaking into the blue light of the Winter Gallery. No hand touched it. The witness table held the strip upright between Odette and Lucien, thin as a wound heavy as 7 years. Lucien did not reach for it. That was how Odette knew he recognized it. Bellora saw the same thing and went very still. The Moonglass Choir waited 20 glass brides, with their veils burned away, their faces turned toward the king who had not spoken when speech would have mattered most. Odette looked at Lucien. What is it? His jaw tightened. For a moment, the Wolf King looked younger than the crown had ever allowed him to be. Not innocent. Never that. Only caught beside a door he had once chosen not to open. My answer, he said. The gallery heard. So did every witness. Odette felt nothing at first, then too much. Lucien looked at the parchment, not at her. After I woke from the silver fever, I kept hearing the melody. I thought it was pain. Bellora said fever had made your voice into a wound song. She said if I went to you, if I spoke anything before the Heir Council stabilized the north, the rival branches would claim I had been bound under illness. Odette's voice came quietly. So you wrote instead? Yes, and hid it. He closed his eyes once. Yes. The Moonglass Choir glowed colder. It did not punish. It recorded. The parchment opened fully. Lucien's handwriting burned across it in black wolf ink. My breath returned because yours guarded it. My name heard yours in the dark. My wolf answered where my mouth failed. Odette stared at the words until they blurred. Not because they were beautiful, because they were late. A written answer could not warm a locked tower. It could not cross a corridor. It could not contradict Bellora before the court. It could not touch the years when Odette had been called unfinished, while the king's own hand had known otherwise. Bellora moved first. A fever document. Private. Unentered. Without witness standing. Lucien looked at her. You told me it was safer sealed. I told you the truth, Bellora said. A spoken answer would have thrown the realm into succession war. Odette lifted her eyes, and an unspoken answer threw me into silence. No one moved. Lucien flinched. Good. The gallery needed him cut awake. The royal wolf shadow behind him pressed one paw into the old vow circle claws, scraping the silver tile. It did not look at Bellora. It looked at Odette's torn cloak, where Lucien's blood had once dried into the thread. Body remembering before pride could arrange defense. Odette turned to the witness table. Does written answer complete vow law? The old succession ledger flipped open. No. Bellora exhaled in sharp relief. Then the page turned again. Written answer proves king's knowledge of preserved life bond. Odette's throat tightened. Lucien's face went grey. The choir sang one note low and merciless. Not a vow, a measure of time. 7 beats, 7 winters. The ledger wrote, knowledge held, truth unanswered, vow holder left unclaimed by choice, not ignorance. A council witness whispered, my king. Lucien raised one hand, not to silence the record, to stop anyone from rescuing him from it. No, he said, let it stand. Odette looked at him then. The choice was right. It was also late enough to bleed. Bellora's voice hardened. If this stands, the Wyth heir slate collapses. Every pact made for the Winter Council becomes voidable. Border houses will accuse the king of concealing a living bond. They will accuse her of waiting to seize heir consent. Odette almost laughed. Waiting, she said. Yes, that is what I was doing in the tower. Waiting to seize a council I was never allowed to enter. Bellora's eyes flashed. You have no idea what succession war costs. I know what it cost to be made convenient. The Moonglass Choir brightened around the word. Lucien turned to Bellora. Who knew about the written answer Bellora did not answer? The chapel key beside the heir token pulsed blue. The succession ledger opened to a witness list. 3 names burned into view. Bellora Wyth, High Priest Calder, Lord Naven Wyth. The last name made the councilman shift. Odette had heard it in tower whispers. Lord Naven Wyth, Bellora's elder cousin, chosen advisor to the Winter Heir Council, guardian of the Wyth succession branch. Lucien's voice dropped. Naven knew. Bellora lifted her chin. Naven kept the North from tearing itself apart. No, Odette said. He prepared to inherit from a lie. The gallery doors shook, not from inside, from outside. A hard knock struck the sealed wood. Then another. A guard's voice came through, strained and urgent. My king, the Winter Heir Council has assembled early. Bellora's mouth curved slightly. There it was, her second knife. Lucien looked toward the door. On whose authority? The answer came not from the guard. A man's voice, smooth with cold rank, carried through the gallery doors. On the authority of an unanswered throne. Bellora's smile returned. Odette looked at the heir token on the witness table. It had begun to darken at the edges. Lucien's written answer trembled beside it. The Moonglass Choir sang softly, almost sadly, unspoken truth invites false hers. The doors opened 1 inch. Enough for cold torchlight to spill in, enough for Lord Naven Wyth's voice to enter clearly. If Odette Varrin is vow holder, he said, let her prove loyalty by naming the heir now. Torchlight cut through the narrow opening of the gallery doors. It came in cold and orange against the blue moonglass glow, carrying the smell of wax-wet wool and too many nobles gathered before dawn, with fear dressed as duty. Beyond the door stood Lord Naven Wyth, silver-haired and narrow-faced, with the Winter Heir Council behind him, in a half-circle of cloaks, seals, and hungry eyes. Odette did not step back. That was the first thing Lucien noticed. Not the council, not Bellora's returning smile. Odette standing before an opened law that could have crushed her, yet refusing to shrink into the bride they had kept in a tower. Naven looked past Lucien, as if the king were already weakened by the truth. His gaze settled on Odette. Lady Varrin, if the gallery names you vow holder, then serve Frostmere. Name the heir. Odette looked at the heir token on the witness table. Black wolf bone. Old law. 7 winters of hidden weight. No. The answer was quiet. It still reached every torch. Naven's mouth tightened. You refuse the realm. I refuse your trap. A murmur moved through the council. Bellora seized it at once. You, hear her. The vow-holder power cannot be trusted. She would hold succession hostage to personal grievance. Odette turned slightly. Personal grievance is what powerful people call the wound after they remove the knife. The nearest Moonglass bride brightened. Lucien's wolf shadow stepped closer to Odette, but Lucien stayed where he was. He had learned at last that protection did not always mean standing in front of the woman everyone wanted to use. Sometimes it meant letting her words reach the room without his body casting a royal shadow over them. Naven's voice sharpened. The law requires consent. The law requires asking, Odette said. Not cornering. The succession ledger answered in silver. Consent cannot be taken under coercion of throne blood or war. Several council members looked away. Naven did not. Then ask properly, Lucien said. The words made the corridor still. Naven bowed his head with shallow respect. My king Frostmere cannot wait on the feelings of a bride whose vow remains interrupted. Lucien's scar pulsed once beneath his collar. His wolf shadow growled. Odette saw both, and hated the part of herself that remembered placing her hand there while he bled. She faced Naven. Whose name is already written, no one answered. The Moonglass Choir hummed. Odette looked toward the witness table. Show it. Bellora snapped. The choir does not answer commands. No, Odette said. It answers vow breath, and mine is in this room. The heir token turned on its own. The hidden slate Bellora had exposed earlier lifted into the air, but another strip of parchment slid from beneath it, thinner, darker, sealed with withgrey wax. Naven's expression changed. Only slightly. Enough. Lucien saw it. Odette did too. The parchment opened before the council could reach it. At the top was a name. Bellora Wyth, Naven's nephew. Below it, 3 prepared lines waited with blank spaces for signatures. Forgotten bride refuses consent. Vow holder deemed hostile to succession. Emergency heir named under council preservation authority. Odette read every word aloud. Her voice did not shake. The gallery did. Bellora closed her eyes. Naven said contingency language. Prepared before you asked me, Odette said. Prepared in case you placed resentment above the kingdom. You mean, in case I remained a person. The Moonglass statue sang one low note. Lucien stepped toward Naven now, not in defense of Odette's answer. In judgment of the lie. You assembled early to force refusal. Naven met his gaze. I assembled because a king who hid a written answer for 7 years has lost clean authority over succession. The blow landed. Lucien did not deflect it. Yes, he said. The corridor went silent. Then he continued, voice colder. And you used my failure to prepare theft. Naven's face hardened. Odette looked at Lucien. For the first time, he had named his own failure without making it the center of the room. That mattered. Not enough. But it mattered. Naven lifted his hand. 2 council guards moved toward the witness table. Lucien's sword came halfway free. Odette spoke first. Touch the token, and the choir will record why. The guards stopped. Naven smiled faintly. So she threatens sacred record now. No, Odette said. I warn men who fear being remembered accurately. The Moonglass Choir rang bright enough to shiver frost from the walls. Naven's smile died. Bellora moved near him. Lord Naven enough. He cut her a sharp look. You said the vow was contained. Bellora's face went pale. The choir heard that too. Contained. The word moved through the gallery like a key finding a lock. All 20 statues turned their faces toward Bellora and Naven. A memory opened above the witness table. Bellora and Naven in council shadow 7 years earlier, bending over Odette's veil, the heir token, and Lucien's sealed answer. Naven's younger voice said, "If the bride survives the tower, she may still be useful." Bellora answered, "Only if she can be made to consent." Naven replied, "If not, grief can be named instability." Odette felt the room tilt. Not because she was shocked, because some part of her had known and still needed to hear it. Lucien's voice came dangerously quiet. "You planned to use her either way." Naven looked at Odette at last without polish. A vow holder is only dangerous when she imagines herself separate from the throne. Odette stepped toward him. The royal guards tensed. Lucien did not stop her. Odette stopped at the threshold, close enough for torchlight to touch her torn bridal cloak. "I am separate from the throne," she said. "That is why my answer matters." The succession ledger blazed silver. Vow holder may refuse. All heir claims until truth of interruption is fully answered. Naven's face emptied. Bellora whispered, "No." Odette looked at the written answer on the table, then at Lucien. "The truth is not fully answered." He understood. His face changed before she spoke the rest. "You wrote the answer," she said. "You never spoke it. Not to claim me, not to complete anything. To stop hiding behind silence." The Moonglass Choir lifted its faces. Lucien's hand went to the old scar at his chest. Beyond the open doors, the heir council waited with torches and knives hidden inside law. Inside the gallery, Odette stood beside the vow circle and did not move toward him. Lucien looked at her, then at the council, then at the 20 glass brides who had remembered what he buried. At last he said, "Then I will answer where everyone can hear." The torches outside the Winter Gallery burned blue. One by one, the heir council's flames changed color, as if the Moonglass Choir had breathed across them from inside the sealed chamber. Nobles stepped back from their own light. Wax hissed down iron handles. Frost climbed their gloves. Lucien walked to the old vow circle, not quickly, not like a king taking command of a room, like a man approaching the place where his silence had first learned to look like law. Odette stood several paces away, her torn bridal cloak pale against the moonglass floor. She did not move closer. She did not lift her hand. She did not rescue him from the weight of being watched. Good. Some answers deserved no shelter. Bellora remained near Lord Naven Wyth at the threshold, both of them. Naven's prepared slate still hung in the air, its false lines exposed Bellora Wyth's name burning black at the top. Lucien looked at it once, then at Odette. "I will not answer to complete what I left broken," he said. The council murmured. He continued before they could use the uncertainty. "I will not answer to claim Odette Varrin by throne, blood, fever, wolf, or old law. I answer because I knew enough to write the truth and lacked the courage to speak it." The Moonglass Choir glowed. Odette's face remained still. Only her fingers tightened once inside the torn cloak. Lucien stepped fully into the vow circle. His wolf shadow followed but stopped behind him, massive head, lowered as if even the beast understood it could remember without taking. Lucien placed his hand over the scar beneath his collarbone. "When silver took my breath," he said, voice carrying through the gallery and into the corridor. Odette's breath guarded mine. The first Moonglass bride opened her mouth. A low harmony answered him. My name heard hers in the dark. The second statue lit. My wolf answered where my mouth failed. The vow circle brightened beneath his boots. Bellora's voice cut through. "A king cannot answer after 7 years and call it law." Odette turned her head slightly. No one called it timely. The soft cruelty of that truth silenced more people than shouting would have. Lucien closed his eyes once, then opened them on the room. "I answer late," he said. "I answer under witness. I answer without demand." The glass bride sang his written words back to him now, carried by his living voice, not buried in blood-sealed parchment. The succession ledger flared. King's answer spoken. Delay recorded. claim cannot proceed without vow-holder consent. Naven exhaled through his teeth. Then she still holds succession hostage. Odette faced him. No, I hold back theft. Naven's eyes hardened. You are one woman. The Moonglass Choir answered with every statue turning toward him. Odette stepped to the witness table and placed one hand beside the heir token, not on it. And you built an entire council to force one woman's answer before dawn. The heir token pulsed. The old ledger turned again. False heir slate entered before consent request. Witness caution confirmed. The Wyth parchment cracked down the center. Naven lunged. Not for Odette, for the heir token. Lucien's wolf shadow moved, but Odette was closer. She swept the blood-stained veil over the token before Naven's hand reached it. The lace flashed blue-white. Naven struck the veil and screamed as the old vow breath burned across his palm. Lucien caught Naven by the collar and drove him to his knees, but he did not kill him. Odette noticed. So did the choir. Naven spat. You will let her ruin you. Lucien's voice was quiet. No, I ruined her by letting people like you guard my silence. Bellora backed toward the open door. A Moonglass bride nearest the threshold sang a single sharp note. The door froze shut. Bellora's face went blank with panic. Bellora Wyth, Lucien said. You removed witnesses, hid the heir token, sealed. The chapel altered the record and prepared a false succession slate. I preserved the crown. You preserved your family's reach. The choir glowed brighter, accepting the wording. Bellora looked at Odette, then hatred finally stripped of polish. You think he chooses you now. He chooses embarrassment over collapse. Wait until the border houses hear a tower bride can refuse every heir. Odette looked at the heir token beneath the veil. Then at Lucien. Then at the council beyond the frozen glass. Let them hear correctly. The gallery went still. Odette lifted the token. No one stopped her. Not Lucien. Not the council. Not the wolf shadow watching her with remembered grief in its silver eyes. She held the black wolfbone coin in her palm. The heir council is suspended until the interruption record is completed. The removed witnesses are restored in law, and every house that prepared a false slate is named. Naven's head snapped up. You cannot suspend the council. The succession ledger answered before Odette could. Vow-holder consent withheld. Council suspended. The Wyth heir slate burned away in blue fire. Outside the gallery, several nobles dropped their torches. Bellora whispered, Then there is no heir. Odette lowered the token to the witness table. There is no stolen heir. Lucien looked at her with something rawer than longing. Respect, perhaps. Or the beginning of learning what love should have been before power touched it. The Moonglass Choir opened its mouths again. This time the sound was neither Odette's vow nor Lucien's answer. It was a question. Old wolf lore shaped it from glass, blood, and moonlight. Vow holder may release, refuse, or answer. The entire gallery turned to Odette. Lucien did not. He lowered his eyes first. I will not ask you to answer me here, he said. Odette looked at him across the vow circle. The choir waited. So did the throne. So did the wound. And for the first time in 7 years, the choice belonged to her. The heir token cooled in Odette's palm. Black wolfbone old lore, the weight of a throne that had mistaken her silence for absence. Around her, the Frostmere Winter Gallery waited with 20 Moonglass brides standing unveiled, their glass mouths parted, their blue-white faces turned, not to Lucien, not to the council, but to her. That was the first mercy the law had given her all night. It waited. Bellora Wyth stood frozen near the sealed door. Lord Naven knelt where Lucien had forced him down, one hand burned by Odette's veil, his prepared heir slate reduced to ash at his knees. Beyond the gallery threshold, the Winter Air Council had stopped pretending it was gathered for stability. They looked afraid now. Good. Fear sometimes taught powerful people to hear quieter truths. Odette placed the heir token on the witness table, not in Lucien's hand. Not in the ledger. On the blood-stained veil where it had been hidden from her for 7 years. I withhold consent from the Wyth slate, she said. The succession ledger burned silver. Witnessed. I withhold consent from any heir named under my banishment. Witnessed. I withhold consent from any council assembled before the removed witnesses are restored to lawful record. The Moonglass Choir sang one low note. This one did not sound like sorrow. It sounded like a door refusing to close. Naven lifted his head. You will leave Frostmere heirless. Odette looked at him. No, I leave it unable to steal an heir before dawn. Lucien's mouth tightened, but not in anger. In pain, he did not ask anyone to soften. Bellora found one final strip of composure. And what will you ask in exchange? A crown, a public marriage, the king on his knees. Odette turned to her slowly. You still think consent is a price? The gallery brightened. Bellora's face closed. Odette stepped toward the witness table and laid the chapel key beside the token. I ask that the gallery record be opened to the kingdom. Every removed witness named. Every sealed chapel order read. Every false heir slate burned before the houses that signed it. Several nobles outside shifted. Lucien turned to them. It will be done. Odette did not look at him, and Bellora Wyth, Lucien's wolf shadow, lifted its head. Bellora went still. Odette continued. She is not to be killed in this room. Blood made this lie possible. It will not end it. The Moonglass Choir glowed in approval. Lucien's voice came cold and clear. Lady Bellora Wyth is stripped of witness stewardship succession, standing and access to royal vow records. Lord Naven Wyth is removed from the Winter Heir Council. Both will stand before the restored witnesses under gallery law. Bellora laughed, once brittle and small. You would let old glass judge living power, Odette answered before Lucien could. No, it has already judged what you tried to make dead. The gallery doors opened. Not wide. Enough. Guards entered and took Bellora first. She did not struggle. Pride held her upright when innocence could not. Naven resisted once, but Lucien's wolf shadow turned its head, and he remembered the burn on his hand. When they were gone, the room felt larger. Not healed. Only emptied of the loudest lie. Lucien remained inside the vow circle. Odette stood outside it. That mattered. He looked at the blood-sealed parchment, at the veil, at the token, then finally at her. I answered late, he said. Yes, I let my written truth become another locked thing. Yes, I came to your tower once and let Bellora's words turn me away. Odette's throat tightened despite herself. The choir was silent. No glass bride rescued him. Good. Lucien took one breath. I cannot ask you to complete the vow as if my answer repairs the years. No, she said. I cannot ask you to release me so Frostmere may feel clean. No. His eyes lifted to hers. May I ask whether you still want to answer me at all? There it was. Not command, not law, not succession disguised as romance. A question. The whole gallery held still. Odette looked at the man who had lived because of her vow and let her be buried under it. She looked at the wolf shadow that had remembered sooner than he had. She looked at the choir that had sung only because no one living had been brave enough to speak before midnight. I do not know, she said. Lucien's face changed, not with relief, with the wound of a deserved answer. Odette stepped closer to the vow circle, but did not enter it. For 7 years, my devotion was treated as evidence to be hidden or repeated on command. If I ever answer you, Lucien Frostmere, it will not be because the throne trembles or your wolf remembers or the choir sings what I gave. His voice was barely more than breath. Then why? Because I choose to. The Moonglass Choir lit from within. The succession ledger wrote vow holder self-held, king's answer received, bond unclaimed, until freely answered. Outside the gallery, the first grey light of dawn touched the blackened windows. Frost cracked across the panes, and for the first time in 7 years, moonlight gave way to morning. Odette reached for her torn bridal cloak. Lucien moved as if to help, then stopped. She saw it. A small restraint. A necessary one. She fastened the cloak herself. At the witness table, the blood-stained veil folded over the heir token and chapel key, sealing them together in blue light. The choir would keep them now. Not Bellora. Not Lucien. Not any council that assembled too early. Odette walked toward the open doors. The guards stepped aside. No one called her forgotten. No one called her false. A councilman lowered his head. Vow holder. Odette paused. The title did not warm her. It did not need to. It was accurate. Lucien followed only as far as the threshold. Odette. She turned. This time her name in his mouth did not sound gentle to avoid truth. It sounded careful because truth had finally entered it. I will restore the witnesses, he said. I will open the chapel. I will stand before the tower door and say what I did not say when it mattered. Odette looked at him for a long moment. Do not stand before the door, she said. Pain crossed his face. Then she added, stand outside it until you are invited. His breath caught softly. I will. She believed him. Not enough for forgiveness. Enough for the first honest silence between them. Behind her, the Moonglass Choir began to sing again. Not Odette's vow alone this time. Not Lucien's answer either. A third harmony rose through the Winter Gallery, unfinished and clear, leaving space where a future voice might one day enter by choice. Odette crossed the threshold into dawn. The torn bridal cloak trailed behind her, no longer a ghost's garment, no longer a relic of an unfinished claim. It was only cloth now, old blood-marked and hers. Lucien remained in the gallery and listened. For once he did not follow before being asked. For once the court watched a woman leave without turning her absence into erasure. And above them all, the Moonglass Choir held the final record in blue-white light. She was not forgotten. She was unanswered.